wrong way. We're off to a good start. I'm shrinking. It happens with age. Thank you. All right. When I think of inheritance, I think of money. I think of property, stocks and bonds, a car, a cottage maybe. But there's got to be more to it than that. I come from such a wealth of Jewish history, born into a small, dysfunctional, disconnected family that wouldn't know a Jewish holiday if they tripped over it. They put me in a French Catholic boarding school. I was the token English Jew. And on one hand, I want to say, God help me. And on the other, I want to tell you to hold on to your seats. Let me share a little bit about my family. My bubby Ann and I have a deep, profound bond. Though I'm not sure it's a two-way street. In all honesty, I never heard the woman speak a word. Not one. But maybe that's what happens after you've had a full frontal lobotomy. She lived and died in Brockville Sanatorium. She sat silently with her hands cupped, her gray and white hair neatly combed into a bun, and her black silk dress with the white lace collar and the little birds fluttering across the fabric. And she could kiss like a super Hoover vacuum cleaner. She'd suck in your whole face. And despite the fact that she was not all there, my Zeta, which is my grandfather, visited her every single week. And from him, I inherited a strong sense of loyalty. Now, my Zeta left Russia when he was just 16 alone to escape the revolution. And he landed in Ottawa, where he married my bubby Ann. He opened up shop and had 3 kids of his own. He worked and he worked and he saved and he saved. And he saved a large inheritance for me. I remember as a kid, he used to take me to the old style diners. Well, it wasn't old back then. You know the ones with the black and white tiles on the floor that look like something out of Alice in Wonderland? And the long counters with the silver and red swivel seats for chocolate milkshakes and grilled cheese, where my feet dangled because they couldn't reach the floor. From him, not only did I inherit a large inheritance, I also inherited endurance and perseverance. And then came my father and his wife, who decided to use the inheritance so that they could retire comfortably. A lawyer advised me against signing over trustee, but back then, my father had threatened to disown me. Back then, my voice was absent and small. Back then, I was insecure and unsure. And I put the ink to the paper, and I signed away what was supposed to be meant for me, in hopes that my father wasn't going to screw me. After all those long-winded lectures on honoring family, there wasn't a dime left. No Jewish little princess would I be. Louder. From my father and his wife, I inherited trust issues and a distaste for two-faced family. How could I forget that? I also inherited twin brothers and 2 sisters, but I'm an only child. I was the part-time member of the family. You know, the one that gets bounced back and forth. And then there's my mother, who wasn't emotionally ready for parenting. But from her, I inherited a strong sense of organizational skills, insecurities, and a shipload of fear. There is one exception, last but not least, was my grandfather, Sidney. Now, there I have some fond memories. We all lived in Montreal. I'd go into the apartment and it was a long hallway with strings and pencils hanging on the end, where you could draw on the walls for hours. It was heavenly. A friend of his had done a beautiful charcoal tree, absent of leaves, and it was a time when Polaroids came out and you could watch the film develop, and he had taken pictures of all his friends and stapled them to the tree, and he had transformed it into his friendship tree. On the side there was a bar, custom made, a pink Volkswagen, sawed in half, with a mannequin inside, one hand on the wheel, and one with a martini glass. I read my first Playboy there. My grandfather was the black sheep of the family, just like me. The one piece that I remember always being around was a carving of a wooden carving with the base of a tree, the branch going up into a knot and bending over just slightly. And in that knot was carved two beautiful women face to face, les Gémeaux, the twins. And I had disconnected from my family, which is a whole different story. But when I did reconnect with Sydney, I asked him, do you have the twins? And he said, yes, why? And hesitantly I said, do you remember when I was a child, you said that one day they would be mine? To which he replied, no, I don't remember that. But if you do, then the twins are yours. So from my grandfather, Sydney, I inherited a flair for being outside of the box and creativity, and the value of a person's word, because of that exchange meant the world to me. Now, I am a child and adult survivor of human trafficking, born in a time where silence is golden and children are to be seen, not heard. Sweep it under the carpet so no one can see. Sidestep as to not trip over the heavy loads. It was like a minefield. It was very confusing. And Leave It to Beaver took on a whole different meaning. So basically what I inherited was a fear-based personality, complex post-traumatic stress, anxiety, depression, dissociative disorder, and borderline me. Years worth of future therapy. So I decided to use what I inherited to the best of my ability. And I dived into therapy. I invested in me. I learned to claim my voice, my space, and stand my ground. And at 42, I gave birth. And I started saving from the time of conception, so that my daughter could inherit something differently than what I had inherited. I tried to create a safe place, a safe space for her to be able to tell me anything. I learned that things are not always as they seem. I changed the course of my inheritance so that she could inherit differently. But the reality is that some of it's just in the genes. Thanks.